Hey there! You're listening to Amplify Your Legacy. This podcast is packed with insights and strategies to turn your passion into something that endures for generations. So get comfortable, stay inspired, and let's jump into today's episode with your host, Sallana Brown. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Amplify Your Legacy. This episode is brought to you by Home Club Capital, your nationwide private funding partner for your real estate investments. Learn more at homeclubcapital.com. Today, I am here with Stephanie O'Brien. Stephanie has been helping coaches share their expertise since 2013. She's what I call a universal translator. She takes all of the complicated, confusing coach speak and turns it into messages that actually sells. But what's really interesting is that she's been on both sides of coaching, as a coach herself and as a client. Some coaches changed her life, while others taught her what she should not do. Now she uses over 10 years of expertise working with coaches, combined with her 20 years plus of writing novels to help coaches and experts transform their wisdom into in-demand coaching and training programs, one that actually gets results. So Stephanie, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much for having me here. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to sharing some strategies with your community.
I'm so excited to sit and have this conversation with you. So let's get started. Let's get started where you are now. You've helped coaches take their expertise and turn them into something truly meaningful. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing and what really gets you excited about doing it?
Absolutely. What gets me really excited about coaching is the moment I started meeting coaches, I fell in love with them, with all these people who were trying to be their best selves, live their best lives, to truly understand themselves and live purposefully and in the best way possible instead of just by default and letting everything happen to them. And what really got me excited was how they were spreading that to the rest of the world, spreading it to other people, helping other people to live their best lives, be their best selves, and to be able to shape their lives the way they wanted instead of just settling for what's handed to them. But one thing I quickly found was that coaches often had trouble really connecting with their clients because, as you were alluding to earlier, they get so deep into their expertise, they start speaking on jargon. They know what they're talking about, but their clients don't. So it's actually why my company is called Coach Client Connection, because I help coaches to connect with their clients, both in terms of how they speak and how do they describe the product, and in terms of how they approach the client, so they don't blend in with all these salesy scammers and spammers that we're all so sick of. So one of the main things that I do for my clients is I often find that coaches, they write out the bullet point list of their coaching programs, but then they get stuck. They kind of forget how much they know. Their knowledge has become so second nature that they forget the details of what all goes into getting the results. So they have a hard time pulling that information out of their heads and onto the paper in any kind of timely manner. They spend weeks procrastinating on perfectionism, struggling to come up with content. I get in a call with them, and within 60 to 90 minutes, we've got the content for their program fully created and fleshed out.
Wow. Wow. I love that. I think a lot of people don't realize how much their information can change lives. They don't know how to structure, like you said, in a way that actually makes others feel welcome and make them to understand it. What's one of the most rewarding part of helping other coaches transform that expertise into something that can really help people?
I think it's knowing the ripple effect it can create. They can help 100 people. Those 100 people are going to go on to affect other people in a more positive way. So those people might very well take those strategies they've learned and help other people still to use those strategies and live better lives as a result. Help one coach, and you could potentially help hundreds, even thousands of other people.
That's so true. That's the powerful part of the ripple effect. And it really highlights something interesting. You're not just helping the coaches, you're helping so many other people, with their programs. And you're helping them find the clarity and what they already know. You're known as the universal translator for coaches. Help us dig deep into what that means as far as your process of how you're helping those coaches who struggle to communicate their value.
One illustration I like to use that I actually got from one of my mentors is there was this guy who he was struggling with debilitating stomach aches after eating bread. Now, what a lot of coaches, if they were health coaches who knew what was wrong with him, would do is they'd offer him a cure for celiac disease, which makes sense if you know that's the problem. But he didn't know that's what he had. Coaches talk about the root causes that people have. We're going to shift your paradigms. We're going to shift your mindset blocks. Trouble is, that's not what their clients want. That's not what their clients think about, because that's not the problem their clients know they have. So if you'd offered this guy a cure for celiac disease, he wouldn't have cared. But you offer him a cure for debilitating stomach aches after eating bread, he's all over that, because that's the symptom he knows he has. That's the problem he knows he has. So what I do is I help coaches who are so familiar with the process, so familiar with the root causes that they've forgotten what their clients don't know. And I help them to translate their messages into, okay, here are the problems that your clients know they have and therefore are motivated to solve. Here are the things that they actually care about. And here are the experiences they want to have. One litmus test I really like to give my clients is, if what you're talking about was the only thing that your clients were going to get from your time together, would they buy it? Let's say you're a relationship coach and you teach people how to have better communication and better confidence so they can meet their soulmate. Now, if all they got was the better communication and the better confidence, but they never, ever met their soulmate, they would not buy your coaching program. Not if what their soulmate was what they wanted. But
Exactly.
if they could meet and marry their soulmate without learning to have better communication and better confidence, they'd buy that. So that's a really good litmus test to use or to tell, are you actually talking about the problems they care about solving and the results they're willing to pay for? Or are you talking about the means to the end that isn't actually what they want? So you got to talk about what they actually want.
That makes so much sense.
Thank you.
And you talked about confidence. I've seen so many coaches who are incredible at what they do, but when it comes to actually explaining it, you're totally confused. But I think another issue people struggle with is confidence. So many people wonder if they're even qualified to coach or train others. How does someone know when they're ready to share their expertise?
The litmus test for that is there a problem you know how to solve, or an outcome you know how to create, and do you know how to help people do that? And it doesn't even have to be the whole journey. It could just be one step. Like one of my mentors, Rhonda Norman, she had a list building booty camp. And yes, that is booty camp, not boot, because this is Rhonda we're talking about. Now, obviously, building your email list is not all you need for building a business. There are other parts that you need as well. But building an email list is still an important, necessary part for many people's business strategies. So even helping people with that one step is going to make a difference in someone's business. So even if you just know how to help people take one step from where they are toward where they want to be, you have the ability to help them. And a couple things it's important to remember about that. Thing number one, you do not have to be the biggest expert in the world to save lives. You don't have to be the most knowledgeable person in a room full of experts. What you do need is to be the most knowledgeable person in a room full of the average people, in a room full of your ideal clients. Because if you know more than they do, then you can give them information they don't have that can improve their lives. And the second thing to remember about that is, as I was alluding to earlier, when someone is really deep in their expertise, when they've known this stuff for a long time, they can kind of start to forget the details, and they can start to forget how much they know that their clients don't. So I've seen so many coaches say stuff like, notice what stories you're telling yourself about this event. They are so good at diagnosing themselves and noticing their own mindset patterns that they're accustomed to noticing what's a story and what's a fact. They forget that the clients don't know how to do that. So because they're so versed in their expertise, because they're so deep into it and it's so second nature, they forget what their clients don't know. But whereas somebody who's really new to this and who remembers what it's like to be new to it and to not know how to diagnose, okay, what's the actual objective events and what's the story I'm telling myself about those events, they're going to be better able to relate to people who don't know how to do that, to realize, okay, here's what my client doesn't know how to do, and here's where I have to give really detailed step-by-step instructions to do it. So yeah, being relatively new to it can actually help you in some cases to identify with and relate to and explain things to people better than if you were so far ahead of them in the journey that you've forgotten what it's like to be them.
Yeah, that's so easy for them to do. Um, what is one way someone can actually boost their confidence when it comes to their own expertise?
Okay, so I'm going to give you an exercise that I love to use with my clients, and I find it's really useful for three things. It boosts your confidence. It helps you come up with a ton of content real fast, like for your coaching program, and it helps you to come up with a ton of content for your marketing. It's like three birds with one stone right there. So here's the exercise that I used to really boost my own confidence. So step one is to think of one of the outcomes that you help people get. Maybe it's meeting their soulmate. You also use that in an illustration. You help single guys to meet and marry the woman of their dreams. So write out a broad list of the steps that your clients would take, preferably in the order in which they take them. Now, I know some people don't necessarily have a chronological order that everyone follows in that order, in which case just lay out the buffet list. It's a buffet of teaching points that they can draw from at this stage of their journey where they need it. So in this case, the steps might be figure out what kind of woman you want to marry, figure out where these women hang out, figure out how to know how to approach her in a way that's welcome and friendly and inviting instead of creepy and pushy and threatening.
Of
how
course.
to get that first date, how to conduct yourself on the first date so you're likely to get a second date, and how to figure out if you even want a second date. That's an example of the steps you could list out. Now, step two for you is to take one of those steps and break it down into the sub-steps. So step one in this, figuring out what kind of woman the guy wants to marry. So some of the steps for this might be, look at the experiences that you want to have with her. What kind of woman would you be able to have these experiences with? Maybe hiking, watching movies together, Netflix and chilling. Whatever the experiences are, what kind of woman would I want to have these experiences with you? What kinds of experiences have you enjoyed with people in the past? What kind of experiences do you want to avoid? And what traits would indicate that someone is going to give you these experiences? So that's an example of the sub-steps you could break one of these steps into. Now, if any of these steps isn't completely self-explanatory all by itself, you need to break it down further. Like I was saying earlier, people tell people what to do, like notice what stories you're telling yourself, but not how to do them. So you need to break it down into such granular detail that an alien who's never even heard of your field of expertise before would be able to execute this process. You really step by step the exact actions they should take. I also recommend including, like step three is to include exercises that they can do, really step-by-step exercises. They should know exactly what actions to take, especially when it comes to the mindset stuff. Make sure that you explain the principles behind it, because when people understand the principles behind it, then they're able to customize it to their unique situation and to do it more authentically, but without losing the effectiveness behind it. And I suggest including examples like I have been throughout this interview to help people really visualize it. So once you've done these three steps, I think you'll find you have and do it with all the steps in your process, you will find you have an incredible amount of detail. You'll really realize, holy crap, I know so much about this in such breadth and such depth, that all these details that I'd forgotten I even knew. Just by following this process, you can draw out all those details that were hiding in the back of your head, forgotten, and remind yourself just how much you actually know. And of course, now you have a crap ton of content right there.
Oh, yes. That's amazing. I love how you gave all of those examples and all of those strategies.
Thank you.
I definitely see that as a way to really help them feel confident about expressing themselves and sharing their expertise. Let's rewind a little bit because I love hearing the stories behind people's journeys. What inspired you to get into this work in the first place?
It actually started with me being a novelist. I wrote my first full-length novel when I was 12 years old. It was a terrible novel. Mom told me, don't delete it, Steph, you'll regret it. I told her, no, it's so horrible. I never want to see it again. We were both right. It was horrible, but I shouldn't have deleted it.
You shouldn't have.
But I've gone on since then to write 14 novels, 4 of which were good enough by adult. Thank you. Yeah, 4 of them were good enough by adult me standards to self-publish on my own website. And so, because I was the most prolific writer in the family, when Mom got into coaching, I came along with her to a bunch of training conferences to learn how to use my fiction writing skills in a business capacity. And that's how I started meeting coaches and falling in love with them and seeing how many of them were such experts, but they also had forgotten how to communicate with non-experts. So that's how I got into working with coaches in the first place. And I also, worked as a client of some coaches, like one relationship coach who was especially helpful. So he really helped me to relate better to people, to understand people, to have more confidence in myself, and to not take things as personally, like when business owners take days to get back to you because, let's face it, our inboxes are packed. I experienced times when coaches changed my life, and also times when their strategies weren't a good fit for me. They sold me on a product or a program they shouldn't have because it required more capital to execute than I had at the time. Do these $50,000 investments. Oh, really? Where am I going to get that at this early stage of my business? So I saw these examples of things coaches did right and things coaches did wrong that contributed to my later ability to help other people replicate those successes and avoid those mistakes.
What were your dreams when you were younger?
Coaches weren't even in my radar, to be honest, until mom became one. I didn't even really know about coaches other than the sports types. When I was young, I was mostly interested in being a novelist. Went through a phase when I wanted to be a superhero, wanted to be able to fly, but obviously that didn't pan
Of
out.
course. Hmm.
But yeah, I also, as a kid, I just really struggled to make friends. So that was one of the things that I wanted to do as I grew up, was learn how to connect with people, how to make friends, and how to be able to have those relationships where I felt valued and secure, and like people actually wanted to have me around instead of me always being the one to call people, hey, you want to hang out, and usually hearing no. That was another big thing that tied into the coach client connection, was just knowing what it was like to struggle to connect with people and seeing coaches struggling to connect. And now that I've learned the social skills to connect with people, wanting to pass those along to other people who are feeling isolated or struggling to make those connections.
That's so very interesting. It's funny how sometimes we fall into our purpose in unexpected ways.
Like
Um,
I forget where the saying came from. You become the person who would have saved you when nobody did.
I love it. But I know you've also been on the other side as a coaching client. Can you share a personal story of a coaching experience that changed your life?
One of them actually kind of ties into what I was saying a moment ago. It was the relationship coach who was helping me to overcome my social difficulties. And one of the story I'd been kind of telling myself based on my experiences was, people aren't going to want to be around me unless they need me. Because pretty much the only person who'd really been interested in hanging out with me was someone else who had social difficulties and was kind of brash, and that other people didn't tend to want to hang out with much. So this person seems to need me because they too were having social difficulties and nobody else wanted to be around me. So that's the story I told myself, was that only those who need me would want me. So
Wow.
my parents get divorced. We moved to a new city, and I'm trying to make friends there. And so I was telling my coach about this feeling that I had and this story I was telling myself, and he gave me an exercise to do. He told me, okay, write out a list of all the different people you're getting to know in this new city that you might become friends with. So I wrote down the list. Then he asked me, okay, who are you currently putting the most effort into making friends with? So I picked the one from the list. And then he asked me, so which of these needs you the most? Oh, I didn't like this scenario. I didn't like to be the person that nobody wanted to be around unless they needed me. But here I was
Mm,
subconsciously recreating it because I thought that's just how it was. It's amazing how many of the things that we think are happening to us that are actually happening through us so subtly
mm,
that we have no idea.
very interesting. Wow. But that kind of coaching stays with you forever.
Yeah, and
But
it's a
I,
good example of using a really tangible step by step exercise to help someone with an intangible mental exercise.
okay, that's great.
Thank you.
I also know that not all coaching experiences are great. Have you ever had a coaching experience that left you feeling disappointed?
Yeah, there have
And
been a
what did
few.
you learn from that?
There have been a few. One of the ones that was mentioning earlier, she sold me into a program I wasn't financially ready for. It turned out to be a lot of investing, and I didn't have the capital for most of her recommendations. She sold me into something too early in my business for me to really use it. So that's one thing to notice is, when make sure you know what your clients are capable of and what they're ready for at each stage of their journey, and only sell them into something if they're actually ready to implement it. Another
Mhm.
is, several coaches, I'd get halfway through a sentence and then they'd decide they knew what I was talking about, and they go on and on and on. And meanwhile, I'm not learning anything. I'm sitting there thinking, you would not be saying a single word of what you're saying if you'd actually let me finish the sentence. If you'd let me finish my thought, you'd know that I already know what you're saying. So I felt ripped off there because, there I am paying for this time, and instead of learning, I'm getting more frustrated. So please, for goodness
Yeah,
sakes, hear your clients out and encourage them. Let them know if I'm on a tangent or if I'm making a wrong assumption. It's okay for you to interrupt me because our time is valuable. Definitely make sure that you listen to your clients and don't make assumptions about what they're saying, especially halfway through a sentence. Don't be those guys.
that's so many important lessons you just gave. Great tips. And
Thank
I
you.
think those are warning signs for coaches out there. Those warnings, it's not just about what you know, it's about how you deliver it, right? What's one of the biggest challenges you face when you first start turning your expertise into a business? What do you think that is?
One thing I've repeatedly seen is that people get partway through the process of designing their program and then they kind of get stuck. They've usually got a bullet list of teaching points, but they're having trouble fleshing it out. They don't have a
Mm,
system for drawing all those details out of their heads easily and in a timely manner. So they just end up spending weeks of work on something that could have taken 60 to 90 minutes. I get on a call with them, and one of the skills I developed while learning to be the learning how better social skills was asking the right questions and really listening and building on those and asking follow-up questions. So it's one thing I do with my clients is I get them on a call and I ask them the right questions and then I write down the answers, and in 60 to 90 minutes their whole coaching program is designed.
I like it.
Thank you.
And I think many people listening will relate to that, especially new coaches who are still figuring things out. If you can go back and give your younger self, when you first started your coaching practice, what's one piece of advice that you would give your younger self about coaching and business?
Don't get all hung up on peripheral stuff like logos and such. If you're in contact with some people who are interested in your services, focus on that. Follow up with them. Focus on selling them your services instead of spending a ton of time on all these peripherals and making people wait so long that they end up losing interest. That was
That's
one
great.
mistake I made early on.
That's great. I know so many new coaches would need to hear that because that's really important. The theme of this show is legacy. I think a lot of people don't realize that sharing their experience is a powerful way to create lasting impact, whether it's through coaching or training or even writing books. What does leaving a legacy mean to you personally, and how are you building that? How are you intentionally building it for yourself?
I think there are a lot of ways to leave a legacy, but the types that I'm personally focusing on are, sharing my wisdom in ways that impact people and will keep on impacting people after I'm gone, and turning that expertise into forms that, will still be available after I'm gone. If you can coach people, then you're going to leave an impact that lasts after you're gone. If you can create training programs that people, that your descendants or your heirs can continue offering in your name, then people will be able to continue learning from you even after you're long gone. This could be audios, videos, books, in whatever form. If your wisdom is still there for people to access, you can keep on teaching people and helping them when you're on vacation, asleep, or dead.
I totally agree. You mentioned that your mother's also a coach. Is there a theme of entrepreneurship and coaching in your family?
Oh, very much so. In fact, my family recently started up a retreat center out in rural Manitoba, 3 minutes away from Lake
Wow.
Manitoba. So yeah, mom and my siblings and I have always been, you know, trying to build businesses together and
Could you tell
build.
us a little bit more about your retreat, sister?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a beautiful little spot. It's in a nice wooded property about 3 minutes away from Lake Manitoba. It's you're right near like close to a highway, but not such a busy highway as to be obnoxiously loud. But yeah, beautiful wooded area, somewhere to get away and just relax and be at peace in nature. You can sleep 7 people, and in winter you can go there for ice fishing, and summer you can go to the beach.
Oh,
So yeah, it's a really beautiful area.
love it. Love it.
Yeah, we
And,
actually call it life by the lake.
and I love the theme of entrepreneurship in your family. It just goes to show that you don't have to be famous. You don't have to um, be rich. You just have to be willing to share what you know with your audience. And
Absolutely.
your audience will find you. Is there any other ways that you think would be a good way to leave a legacy through the coaching and training programs?
Well, in addition to sharing their wisdom with people both during and after their lives, they can also build a financial legacy for their families. If they can sell a lot of these coaching programs, they can build a financial legacy they can leave to their families. If the coaching and training programs, well, I guess more training, like once they're dead, they can't really coach, but the training programs could keep on making money, which they could then say will to charity or will to another worthy cause. Percentage of each sale goes to so and so cause. So that's another way to leave a financial legacy and keep on impacting lives after you're gone. Those are other examples.
Love it. Great, 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 great. Awesome. That's inspiring because you get into business for many reasons, of course, to create a legacy, create financial independence. So being that you can share that information, your expertise, you go to school for so many years. And there's a lot of people out there that don't feel confident in sharing their information. So I love what you're doing with your program, and you're helping people to gain that confidence, and they don't have to do it alone. They have a coach that can walk them from A through Z. So that's inspiring.
Thank you.
What's one practical step that they can start today to start building their own legacy through coaching or training?
I strongly encourage people to take the exercises that I shared, the litmus test regarding their selling point, and especially that exercise where you write out the steps, then the sub-steps, and the principles, examples, and exercises. I strongly encourage people to do that today. And once you've written that out, you should have a lot of your coaching program already created. And of course, if you do need additional help to create your coaching program after that, I'd love to talk with you. I definitely recommend as a first step, write out that sequence of or that outline for your coaching program. I also have a free gift if people are interested. It's how to pick a coaching topic that sells. So if people are having trouble selecting their niche or figuring out if maybe they have multiple topics they could coach on, they aren't sure what's in demand or what they want to coach on, I actually have a series of step-by-step exercises they can use to do the market research, and in the process of doing that market research, to build actual connections with their target audience, which can lead to sales later on, and to do it in a way that's actually organic and helpful and welcome, instead of just barging into somebody's inbox. Hey, what are your biggest struggles in the area of thing you have absolutely no business asking a total stranger about?
I love that. Thank you for sharing that with our audience.
You're welcome.
That would be perfect. I know they're going to grab that. Also, I have a question about your plans, your future plans. How do you see yourself and your company a year from now, 3 years from now? How do you see your impact influencing people?
I want to be I'm planning to build out my current 20-week program, build it out even better, and have at least 10 people a month in that. I want to be helping at least 10 coaches a month to master the art of creating their coaching programs, in addition to various one-on-one calls in between. I also want to, I've got 3 different novels currently in the works and a whole bunch of others on the back burner. So I want to have those, created and published and selling. Those are kind of 2 of the main things.
Yes, I love it. I love
Thank
it.
you.
You're going to be really busy. I see it already.
Yeah, I do tend to be juggling a lot of projects.
Okay, so what's one takeaway that you want to share with our audience before we wrap up?
Well, one thing to remember is that even if you can just help people with one step, even if there's just one thing that you know how to accomplish or one problem you know how to solve that people really care about and are willing to pay for and that would make their lives better, you have the capacity to sell your coaching and to help people. You don't have to know everything. You don't need to know how to help them do the whole journey. As long as you know how to help them make their lives better in some specific, tangible way, you can help people. And you're doing people a service by offering them that. You're not wronging them by asking them for their money. You're giving them an opportunity to build a better life and to make an investment in it that will make them more motivated to actually do the action steps and get the results.
Wonderful. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much. This has been such an insightful conversation. So many gems, so many strategies that I know everyone need.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share.
Oh, you're welcome. For everyone listening who wants to connect with you, where can they find you?
My website is 𝐶oachclientconnection.com. My email is stephanie@𝐶oachclientconnection.com. And that free gift I mentioned, how to pick a coaching topic that sells, I believe we'll have that in the show notes, right?
Yes, indeed. Thank you once again for being here. And to all of our listeners, if you found this episode insightful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget, today's sponsor is Home Club Capital, your nationwide private funding partner for your real estate investments. Visit homeclubcapital.com to learn more. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building your legacy.
That's all for this episode of Amplify Your Legacy. A huge thank you for listening in today. I hope today's conversation has sparked some reflection on your own legacy. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Sallana Brown. And visit sallanabrown.com for more resources on growing and preserving your legacy. Be sure to leave a rating or review. It helps others discover the show. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes packed with inspiration and actionable strategies. Until next time, keep amplifying your legacy.